Hello, Professor Lenz here. In this video, I'm going to talk about structure, a formula for structure that, if you learn to do it well, will get you through college. Now, I'm going to talk about this under the assumption that you have already done a few key things in preparation for the actual writing of the paper. What would be called the pre-writing phase, where you've chosen a subject, found a unique angle to discuss, have found research if required, and have combed over the assignment rubric to make sure that you're hitting all the bases that your professor is asking for. This video will not cover pre-writing, but rather is about the actual process of assembling your ideas in a logical and organized fashion. So let's begin. I'm going to use a series of symbols to represent the basic paper structure we'll be working with. There we go. As you can see, I have an upside down triangle, 4 rectangles, and a right side up triangle. These represent your basic 3 parts of a paper: intro, body, and conclusion. Now, I have this laid out in 6 pieces with 4 body sections, but it doesn't have to be 4. As a general rule, you need at least 3 of something to make a pattern, so I am assuming you have at least 3 subtopics you want to explore in your paper to help make your case. But it could be 4 or more, and you can expand the body sections as necessary. I'll be using 4 for this example. When it comes to the introduction, you can see that the upside down triangle begins wide and narrows down to the tip. This is meant to represent the scope at which you begin your paper and the focus you'll be narrowing into. That's going to become the thesis of the paper. I'm going to call it the theme to thesis strategy. You aren't going to begin the paper by laying out your thesis statement and jumping right into things. A reader needs a bit more finesse before you can get to the specific focus. Some context is needed, so you will introduce the theme of the paper in a bit of a broader sense. For example, if you're writing about a local homeless organization, you might begin with a personal story of a day you were working at a local soup kitchen and really noticed the issue for the first time. This could then transition into talking about the issue of homelessness in your community, leading to a thesis about how this organization is doing something unique as a solution to this local problem. If it's a subject you don't have a personal connection to, you could introduce the theme in a more general sense. Again, using the homelessness example, it would be a bit too broad to talk about homelessness in general. The reader is well aware of this problem, but perhaps they might be less aware of the idea of food insecurity. So perhaps that becomes the opening theme you'll introduce the reader to before narrowing the scope to a particular organization helping to address this issue in a more localized way. So, in addition to thinking about an intro in a theme to thesis sense, also look at the scope in a global to local sense. But be careful in thinking about it in too generalized of terms. You shouldn't start off too broad or you'll risk talking down to the reader. By the time you get to your thesis, you should have a clear, original, and specific focus for the paper. And at that point, you're locked in. Everything from that point forward should be working toward proving your thesis. When it comes to the body of the paper, I have 4 rectangles to represent the different sections. Again, you could have more, but you should have at least 3 subtopics you want to discuss. Note that these rectangles do not represent paragraphs, they're sections, and you could have as many paragraphs as you need within a section. I'll just use small circles to represent possible paragraphs within each section. When it comes to writing paragraphs, I like to look at each paragraph as a mini paper. And just like a paper, a paragraph has 3 basic sections. 1. An intro sentence, also known as a topic sentence. Your topic sentence should act as a mini thesis, a sentence that lays out the focus for the paragraph, which should be directly connected to proving a layer of the overall thesis. 2. Body sentences. Each sentence after the topic sentence should be working to prove that intro sentence. And 3. Your conclusion sentence, which should crystallize the point that you want to make. The reason I like to look at paragraphs in this way is because one of the biggest mistakes I see students make is not having a clear sense of direction or focus for a paragraph, and they begin to veer off into various topics from where the paragraph began. This makes your writing read more stream of conscious, which will be perceived as unpolished or amateurish. Hopefully you can begin to see how this formula helps maintain focus. If you have a clear and focused thesis, and with every paragraph you create a topic sentence that is directly connected to the thesis, and as you write your body sentences within each paragraph, you make sure that each one is working to prove the topic sentence, well, if every body sentence connects to the topic sentence and every topic sentence connects to the thesis, then every sentence in your paper will be working to directly prove your argument, and you'll never veer off track. Now, when it comes to organizing your body sections, this could take many forms. For example, if you're writing a persuasive paper, I would recommend arranging your paragraphs to begin with the strongest point and work down to your weakest. I think it's better to begin those types of papers with your best foot forward. The fourth section here could be a counter-argument section, where you try to take on a strong point from an opposing position. If you're writing an analysis paper, it will depend on what you're analyzing. If it's a film or something time-based with a story, I would recommend stepping the reader chronologically through a series of crucial scenes. Pick the 4 or 5 most relevant and important scenes to analyze. However, when it comes to analyzing images, there is no time-based component. So you will use what's known as a spatial structure, where you focus on one specific location of the image at a time. I generally recommend moving from concrete to abstract when using this structure. What I mean by that is starting with something that can make a clear connection to the theme you want to discuss. The abstract becomes more plausible once concrete connections are established. For more information on how to analyze an image from concrete to abstract, please see my How to Analyze Advertisements video. There are also other ways to arrange a paper. If you're writing a research paper about a social issue, you could do it in a problem-solution format, where you lay out a few key problems and then shift into a discussion of a particular solution. There are a lot of variations, and you'll have to choose what works best for your particular subject matter. Okay, that about covers the body, which leaves us with the conclusion. And yes, the reason I have a right side up triangle here is to somewhat mirror what we talked about in the introduction. Only this time we'll be moving from local to global. The local part of your conclusion should recap the most important takeaways of the paper. It should essentially say to the reader, if you don't remember anything else from this paper, this should be it. However, the global portion shouldn't simply restate the theme. Instead, you should end the paper by showing the reader why this is all important in a larger worldly sense. Show the reader how this subject is not only important to you, but also why it should be important to them and their perception of the world. That about covers it. Now, an upper grade level paper is more than just its structure. It's dependent upon having a unique idea, style, grammar, citation, and other elements. But when it comes to structure, if you learn to execute what has been discussed here, and you do it well, this formula will get you through college. I know this because, well, it got me through my undergraduate degree.